Welcome back. This is Buddhist Books Podcast, episode 255. And today is a very special episode because I am speaking to you on December 5th of 2024. And this podcast, or this YouTube channel, whatever, it's called Buddhist Books Podcast. It is a podcast. It's on the podcasting platforms, but it's also on YouTube. Anyway, doesn't matter. The very first episode was December 5th of 2021, meaning that this program, this channel, this podcast, as of today, is officially 3 years old. I have been doing this for 3 years. And further, 255, I mentioned, it's episode 255, is divisible by 3. I know it doesn't seem like it would be, at first glance. It's got a 5 on the end, 255. But 8 times 3 is 24, right? So 80 times 3 is 240, and 15 on the end of that. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So, you can kind of do some quick math in your head if you don't have So 85, an average of 85 episodes per year. If I had to guess, I'd say that the first year was probably higher, and this past year it's been fewer, but average 85 episodes per year. So anyway, I know some of you, this is the first time you've ever seen me, and you're like, okay, all right, cool, 3 years, get on with it. What's this about? All right, well, let me just real quick, I'm going to point to the corner, and there's going to be a link appearing. It's going to say Buddhist Books Podcast, and it's going to have all 255 episodes in one playlist. And the first episode will be the introduction. So if you'd like, you can, click that, look at all 255 episodes. And if you want to, you can click the playlist, or click the introduction at the beginning. And I'll explain the podcast, kind of talk a little bit about it, and introduce myself a little bit, and I'll also let you know what all is going on the podcast. One of the things that's relatively recent on this podcast, I'll point to it now. There it is, Buddhist Books Podcast. For those of you clicking away, bye, until next time. All right, now that they're gone. Today, in addition to being the 3-year anniversary episode and episode 255, is also Shingon Buddhism, part 5, in which I will continue reading the Matrix and Diamond World Mandalas in Shingon Buddhism. And this, of course, is Japanese Vajrayana, Kukai, also known as Kobo Daishi. I'm working on my pronunciation a little bit. He traveled from Japan to China in around 700, 800, and then returned after having become initiated with a guru of the Vajrayana tradition, similar Vajrayana tradition as that of Padmasambhava. He's here, but it ended up being a little bit of a difference over time, which is interesting, very interesting to me. My wife is from, right around where the university, Nalanda University, the one, it kind of within, 40-mile radius of that is where her family probably was back then when Lord Buddha was walking the earth. So I find it interesting. And then, of course, 1,000 years after Lord Buddha was walking the earth, plus a few more centuries, they would have been teaching Vajrayana at that university. And that was one of the places where, at least if Padmasambhava did not attend at the university. I know one of his 8 teachers was a teacher at that university. Anyway, a lot of Naropa and several prominent figures in Vajrayana came from that region and went up to Tibet, and then some of them, like Vimalamitra, went to China and established Vajrayana there, which is where Kukai, also known as Kobo Daishi, would have received it and brought it back to Japan. So then in the 1100s, invaders from Afghanistan area came in, and they really didn't like Buddhism for some reason. They really targeted Buddhism, and they destroyed Nalanda University and wiped out every trace they could find of Buddhism in what we now call India. So the people who left India, which at the time was not necessarily popular with the authorities at the time for people to take the Vajrayana teachings out of India to places like Tibet and China. But it's kind of like, thank goodness they did that, because it survived. It still exists in the form of all the various kinds of Tibetan Buddhism, as well as Shingon Buddhism. So I'm very interested in diving, gradually over the course of years, more and more into the Tibetan and into the Japanese forms of Vajrayana, in order to get a clearer and clearer picture of what all was going on in the centuries just before Buddhism was wiped out of India, the forms of Buddhism that were going on in India, the Vajrayana forms. Of course, many things happen parallel at the same time, as we can see, same thing in the West with, Judaism and Christianity and Islam, all trying to exist side by side. They tend to have a more difficult time getting along, where Theravada and Mahayana and Vajrayana, for them, it was a matter of they would have these great debates, and there would be, an expert, a scholar of Vajrayana, and a scholar of Mahayana, and a scholar of Theravada, and they would all present their cases, and then, there'd be some kind of vote by audience applause or something to decide who had the best argument, and then the kingdom would bow toward that form of Buddhism for the next 5 years or something like that, So they had a much more peaceful, they had much more of an emphasis on ahimsa, and not so much on the, killing in the name of. We all know Rage Against the Machine, right? Anyway, I'll get to the reading, shall I? If you would like to kind of know where we're at, because we're going to be jumping in the middle of a section. So if you want to, you can start with episode 1 of Shingon Buddhism, and then watch 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you can arrive here at Shingon Part 5. Here's the playlist for Shingon Buddhism. Bye! Now that they're gone, it's just you and me. Let's get to it. Picking up right where we left off last time. And since this is an anniversary episode, usually I don't play music in the background except for the Zen Buddhism episodes and the Padmasambhava episodes. But just because it's an anniversary episode, let's play some music, Editor Edward. I'm not sure what he's playing, but I'm sure it's lovely. And could you put the album cover up right there? And then, of course, the link is in the description below. Okay. The 4 mandalas pervade all the dharmas of the universe. They are omnipresent throughout the dharma world. Each dharma compounded of the 6 elements, including all inanimate objects and all animate beings inhabiting the 10 worlds, from the denizens of the lowest hells to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, is a great mandala. Each dharma, from the dependent reward of the being through the mudras of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is a Samaya mandala. Each sound of the universe is a Dharma mandala. And every action, both physical and mental, mundane and supramundane, is an action mandala. The four mandalas are, quote, unified, merged, interpenetrating, and mutually pervading, end quote. Each of the innumerable dharmas of the cosmos possesses all four mandalas, and each of the four mandalas completely permeates the entire Dharma world. There is a, quote, horizontal inseparability, end quote, of the four mandalas at the level of, quote, interpenetration within differentiation, end quote. That is, at the level where the being is seen as separate from the Buddha. The four mandalas within the being interpenetrate each other without hindrance. The four mandalas of the being interpenetrate the total universe. Each being possesses within his own body and mind all the dharmas made up of the 6 elements, all forms as symbols, all sounds, and all the actions of the cosmos. Again, there is a, quote, vertical inseparability, end quote, of the four mandalas at the level of, quote, interpenetration within identity, end quote. The level where the being is seen as identical with the Buddha. The four mandalas of the being and the four mandalas of Mahavairokkana are omnipresent throughout the cosmos and interpenetrate in the same total way as light and space, so that there is a total union of the body and mind of the being within the body and mind of the Buddha, and with the universal form within suchness. I'm trying to find a way to do this where I don't knock over the microphone, and it's a very heavy book. So, okay, part 3, or the number 3. The identity of universal function and the 3 mysteries. The actions of men are of 3 types, called, quote, 3 actions, end quote. Physical actions, which are the movements and gestures of the body, speech, and the actions of the mind, such as thought, perception, and volition. The unenlightened see these 3 types of action as belonging exclusively to the phenomenal world and as quite distinct from the world of absolutes. The awakened see them otherwise, as the 3 types of action that wholly interpenetrate suchness. The Buddhas see that the bodily actions, speech, and mental activities of beings are aspects of the actions of the body, speech, and mind of Mahavairokkana, Tathagata. All the actions of beings and all the movements of the physical dharmas are in non-dual identity with the actions of the Dharma body of the Tathagata. All the utterances of men and all the sounds of the universe are identical with the Tathagata's speech. And all mental functionings are identical with the actions of the Tathagata's mind. The Tathagata's body, speech, and mind, which together comprise universal function, cannot be seen, heard, or understood by the unawakened, nor even by the bodhisattvas, who have reached the penultimate stages of awakening. They are hidden and inconceivable, except to the fully awakened Tathagata himself, and are therefore called the quote, three mysteries, end quote. The mystery of the body, the mystery of speech, and the mystery of mind. These three mysteries constitute the most profound and subtle essence of the Dharmas and abide in complete identity, so that the mystery of the body is identical with the mystery of speech. The mystery of speech is identical with the mystery of mind, and all three are equally the functioning of the Dharma body. The ignorant imagine that the three actions of men are separate from the three mysteries of the Dharma body, Buddha. They do not see the true essence of their actions of body, speech, and mind, and therefore remain enmeshed in the world of samsara. The awakened Buddhas, however, see that the three actions of beings are not different from the three mysteries of the Tathagata. The physical, verbal, and mental activities of beings are nothing other than the functioning of the Dharma nature of the six elements, are fundamentally unproduced, possess all the qualities and virtues of suchness, and equate the three mysteries of the Dharma body and the Dharma essence. This being so, the three actions of beings are also, quote, mysteries, end quote, and are accordingly termed the, quote, three mysteries of beings, end quote. The three mysteries of beings and the three mysteries of Mahavairokkana's Dharma body are fused in a non-dual identity. But in the view of the deluded, they appear separate. When immanent within the body and mind, but as yet hidden by the veils of ignorance, the three mysteries of the Buddha are termed the, quote, innate three mysteries, end quote. When their inseparable immanence within the three actions of the being has been realized as a result of practicing the esoteric rituals, they are called the, quote, cultivated three mysteries, end quote. To enable the unawakened to realize the innate three mysteries, the Tathagata reveals ideal forms of bodily, verbal, and mental action, when correctly performed in prescribed rituals, these three paradigmatic forms of action unify with the three mysteries of the Dharma body, so that the gestures, speech, and thought of the performer of the ritual totally fuse with the body, speech, and mind of Mahavairocana Tathagata. These exemplary actions of body, speech, and mind are the, quote, three mysteries of method, end quote. The basis of all esoteric rituals and practice. The actions of the body described in the sutras are hand gestures called, quote, seals, end quote, mudras. The actions of speech are, quote, true words, end quote, or Shingon. That is, dharanis, or sacred incantations. And the actions of mind are visualizations of the, quote, four knowledge seals, end quote, corresponding to the four mandalas. Great knowledge seals, which are colored anthropomorphic images. Samaya knowledge seals, which are symbols such as vajras, swords, and jewels. Dharma knowledge seals, or seed syllables, and action knowledge seals, which are uncolored anthropomorphic images. These knowledge seals function as objects of mental concentration in the performance of rituals. The unenlightened are not able to see that the actions of their everyday life are an inseparable aspect of the actions of the body, speech, and mind of the Tathagata. Nor are they able to see that the hand gestures, incantations, and actions of mental visualization prescribed in the sutras and used in ritual are inseparably merged with the Tathagata's three mysteries. The awakened, however, perceive that the three mysteries of method and the three mysteries of the Dharma body are non-dual. The three ritual actions and the three actions of the Buddha are aspects of the same reality. For the Buddhas, the three mysteries of method, the innate three mysteries, and the cultivated three mysteries interpenetrate without residue or distinction. Kobo Daishi's doctrine of independent co-origination from the three universals can be interpreted at two levels. Firstly, viewing it from the level of the unenlightened, who distinguish phenomena and their source between that which produces and that which is produced. The dharmas arise by dependent co-origination from the six elements. But since phenomenal dharmas are only known by their forms and their functioning, to say that dharmas arise by dependent co-origination from the six elements is to say that universal form, the four mandalas, and universal function, the three mysteries, also arise by dependent co-origination from the six elements, that is, from universal essence. Universal form, which is the totality of the innumerable Dharma forms, and universal function, which is the totality of their innumerable actions and functions, arise by dependent co-origination from universal essence. Kobo Daishi expresses this by likening universal essence to the trunk and universal form and universal function to the branches of a tree. At this level of their viewing, the three universals are, quote, vertically differentiated, end quote, into a hierarchy in which universal essence is in the position of the absolute and of, quote, one flavor identity, end quote, while universal form and universal function are in the dependent and relative position of conditioned co-origination. Secondly, viewing the doctrine of dependent co-origination from the three universals at the level of the awakened, the three universals are all equally merged in the, quote, ocean of the fulfillment and completion of all qualities, end quote. This is the realm of the absolute and of innate essences, where there is no differentiation of the dharmas and their source. At this level of viewing, the three universals are seen in their, quote, horizontal identity, end quote, each possessing the totality of the qualities of the other two. The three universals are not ordered into a hierarchy, all being equal, and there is no distinction between that which produces and that which is produced. Here, the six elements are termed the, quote, six elements of the suchness of the Dharma body Buddha, end quote. I mean, that was in quotes, six elements of the suchness of the Dharma body Buddha. The four mandalas are termed the, quote, four mandalas of the suchness of the Dharma body Buddha, end quote. And the three mysteries are termed the, quote, three mysteries of the identity of the Dharma body Buddha, end quote. Kobo Daishi marries these two ways of viewing the three universals once again by appealing to the concept of interpenetrative non-duality, the vertical differentiation, and the horizontal identity of the three universals interpenetrate and merge. They are only different insofar as they are two ways of viewing the same thing. The doctrine that universal form and universal function are produced by dependent co-origination from universal essence is the inseparable complement of the doctrine of the, quote, equality of the three universals, end quote. Kobo Daishi expresses the mutual interpenetration of vertical differentiation and horizontal identity when he refers to the doctrine of dependent co-origination from the three universals as, quote, the doctrine of dependent co-origination of the produced and yet unproduced, and of the unproduced and yet produced, end quote. So there was a table here, which I'll read through, and at the same time, Editor Edward will find a way to maybe just fill up the whole screen with this. All right, so we have the three mysteries. Right, okay. So on the upper left, it says the three mysteries, and then there are the mysteries: body mystery, word mystery, mind mystery. Then the three Buddha bodies: correspondence body, transformation body, and Dharma body. The three sections: Buddha section, lotus section, and diamond section. Three jewels: Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and Sangha jewel, meaning community. Sangha is community. The Buddhist community. Like, it means sort of similar to church, how it originally, ecclesia meant community, and then it came to mean church. Sangha means community in that same kind of way, where it's the community of the Buddhists. Okay. So the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are the three. The three jewels. 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness is how they're divided into 3, I guess. 4 mandalas: Great Mandala, Samaya Mandala, and Dharma Mandala. That's 3. I'll keep reading. 3 virtues: liberation, Dharma body, and wisdom. 3 mysteries with form: mudra, dharani, and samadhi. Okie dokie. Oh, okay. The action mandala is not shown on the chart because it belongs equally to each of the 3 mysteries. All right. Well, that's something. I'll just finish this section. All right. It says here, in summary, the doctrine of the 3 universals teaches that the relative world of our everyday experience and the absolute world of the Tathagata are inseparable aspects of a single reality. The relative and the absolute are non-dual. The most profound and essential nature of the dharmas is not distinct from the dharmas apprehended by the senses. The body, speech, and mind of beings interpenetrates the body, speech, and mind of Mahavairocana's Dharma body. And that's the end of the section. It strikes me as a good place to close for today. Very, there's kind of a lot there. I feel like I don't have much in the way of commentary, other than just that I am going to enjoy listening to myself recite that more than once later, and I'll try to absorb it so that I can be all caught up when we get to part 6 and continue along that same line going forward. In an earlier episode, I had commented that I hope that this doesn't all build up to, okay, so you've got to find an appropriate initiated, guru within Shingon Buddhism, and then he'll teach you the secrets. And that thought occurred to me when it was talking about, using these particular mudras in particular ways, in particular rituals, and that kind of thing. But I do remember one time skipping ahead, opening this book to a random place and reading about how at 12 noon or 12 midnight, the monk would face south and visualize the red triangle, which is appearing somewhere on the screen here, the red tetrahedron. And, there was a particular practice he would do. I think it went into the breathing and everything. I even did an illustration of it, which hopefully is appearing on the screen somewhere, if I was able to find that. Inspired by just that, like, half a page that I read that's somewhere in the middle of this book. So rest assured that while no doubt, even as thick as this is, it likely does not contain all of the teachings of Shingon. Obviously, Shingon is 1,200 years old, and, there's a lot of, things that no doubt have been added along the centuries, in addition to what Kobo Daishi taught initially. The point I'm making is it does go into some of the actual specific rituals. So that's something you can look forward to. As to whether or not you should try them, well, those of you who are watching our sister program would know what Carl Jung would say. He would say, no, don't do it. But you know what I would say. I would say, sure, try it. So if you want to listen to me, if you want to listen to Carl Jung, don't listen to anybody. Just to use your own inner compass, I'd say. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Not very useful thoughts, but thoughts nonetheless. I hope that whoever's watching enjoyed this. For those who are new, I hope that you click subscribe down below. You can click like if you'd like to. But yeah, join us for this journey. Most of what we do, generally 80%, 70 to 80% of what we do here is we read the books that are right behind me, which are the Tipitaka of pre-sectarian early Buddhism. And since we began reading that, we've been reading the rules, which is the discipline basket. We're almost 2/3 of the way through with the discipline basket. And I'm inclined to say that the best part of that is that eventually we'll be finished with it and we can get to the teachings, the earliest Buddhist teachings. While it is interesting at times to read the rules and the stories about how the rules were established, it can also be a little bit dull, but I've committed to read the whole thing on this podcast, so that's what I'm doing. And the other 20 to 30% of what we do here is Shingon, the life and liberation of Padmasambhava, the Shobogenzo, the treasury of the eye of the true Dharma, or the eye of the treasury of the Shobogenzo. It's Dogen, Zen, Japanese Zen, which is a distillation of Chinese Chan, which is, you might say, a fusion of Taoism with Mahayana Buddhism, but that is a little controversial. Others might say it's the true Buddhism that was passed from Lord Buddha to Mahakasyapa when he held up a flower, and which passed down a line of patriarchs to Bodhidharma, who then traveled to China and sat in Shaolin Monastery, and then the line of patriarchs continued and continues to this day. That's the more traditional explanation of Chan or Zen, but take your pick. For those who are new, I'll just throw these up here. These are the 6 types of Buddhism that we cover generally, and so we've got this is what I use to represent pre-sectarian early Buddhism, i.e. the Tipitaka, which later evolved into Theravada, which some call Hinayana. I don't call it Hinayana. These books over here, the Theravadan scholar monks of Burma and Sri Lanka, commenting on and explaining the Tipitaka, I would put in the category of Theravada and not obviously pre-sectarian early Buddhism, because this is definitely post-sectarian, and Mahayana had already come into existence, and even Vajrayana had begun by the time they were doing their commentary from a Theravadan perspective. Then of course there's Mahayana and Tibetan Vajrayana, and then Shingon, which is what we are doing today, and then Chan or Zen. So I love Zen. I love Dogen. He was kind of where my entry point into Buddhist books, my entry point into Buddhism itself was much more in alignment with Padmasambhava and Nyingma type, Tibetan yogic practices, which my father taught me when I was very young. But as far as reading, as far as, words on the page entering into the brain to make you go, side of Buddhism. It was Shobogenzo. And his book recommendations, Dogen's recommendations about other teachers and books eventually grew into the 3 shelves behind me. And then I wasn't reading them as much as I wanted to, and I thought, hey, you know what would be a good way to get myself to read these books would be to read them on YouTube, and there you go. Now you have the almost complete story of how Buddhist Books Podcast came to be 3 years ago today. Hooray! So, if you'd like to celebrate with me, feel free to comment below. And, I look forward to reading those. And I will go ahead and do the usual closing, which was the closing of the practice that my dad taught me when I was young. It goes like this: to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Until next time.